About it joins us David Teel, who joins us today on 365 Sports from the Richmond Times-Dispatch. David, has this been one of the hardest stories you've ever covered?
Oh, absolutely it has. No matter how many tragedies that you chronicle, and there have been many that I've encountered over nearly 40 years in this business, it never becomes easy. And you don't know what to say, and you don't really know what to do. And you just try to provide some context and comfort and realize that it may or may not do any good, but you just try your best.
Tony Elliott, I know, had the press conference today, and they've canceled the game. Do you foresee them playing the game next week against Virginia Tech on the road, or is that something that's going to be determined based on how the team is dealing and recovering in the next week or so?
I think it depends on exactly what you mentioned. And I think it also hinges, gentlemen, on the family's wishes and when services may be scheduled for these three fallen young men. Because I know that Virginia is going to want to travel as a team to each of those funerals, and all three of them are from out of state.
The basketball game Friday with Baylor in Vegas. Have you heard anything else about that? Because it appears as if that's still on.
All of Virginia's other scheduled sporting events, other than Saturday's home football game, are on target to be played. And that includes several of their Olympic sports teams that are in the postseason.
So, David, if you don't mind me asking, when it's a horrible story, there's nothing good about it other than people rallying around Virginia who have ever experienced the same thing, or just because no matter rivalries or whatever, or intensity of rivalries, you do this. You rally around someone who's been hurt or had something like this occur. Take me through you. When this popped, I think it was late Sunday when the actual incident went down. So take me through you as a journalist in how you went about your business in trying to figure out what you do in trying to cover this story.
Well, we really didn't get word of the scope of this and the fact that players were victims. At least I didn't until Monday morning. I kind of checked out from Twitter and social media Sunday night, but Monday morning it became clear that tragedy had unfolded in Charlottesville. And you work with your teammates and you try to uncover the best information that you can without intruding, if that makes sense. Normally, we in the media revel in being intruders. But in cases such as this, I find that I can't take on that role. That I want to make sure that people who are grieving have enough space and privacy. That perhaps is a flaw of mine, but it's just kind of the way that I see it.
David, I think you're right there. Look, the Baylor community went through something very similar 20 years ago or so ago when Patrick Dennehy was murdered by Carlton Dotson. It's one of those things that there's never an explanation for any of this that's ever going to make sense to anybody or make anybody feel better, and especially the families, and asking them questions is not really going to, get you to that end of what the motive was here or why this happened. So, yeah, I completely understand how you feel there.
Thank you.
So Brent Pry, who's at Virginia Tech, was at Memphis and experienced something similar 15 years ago as a defensive line coach. You wrote that story. What did he tell you?
He recalled what happened at Memphis. He, as you said, he was a defensive line coach 2007. This is less than 48 hours before the Tigers were scheduled to play a home game against Marshall. And a walk-on nose guard was murdered on campus in an attempted robbery. And Pry just recalled the grief that was all-encompassing and overwhelming, and how he struggled with whether the game should be played. And as it turned out, it was. Memphis actually won the game, and then 3 days later, the Tigers traveled together to Nashville for this young man, Taylor Bradford's funeral. And even in victory, Pry said it was hollow, somber. Bradford had been designated as an honorary captain that night. The band played Amazing Grace at halftime. But it's still, Pry said that day and those days are still a haze.
David Teel, Richmond Times-Dispatch, with us on the Virginia story that started on Sunday night with an off-campus trip. Football players were involved. And I saw a note, David, and I didn't have a chance to read all of it, but I saw a note that actually that despite, one life is too many, 3 lives obviously horrible, and then in fact a couple of players injured, that this could have been even much worse, that it could have been like maybe 10, 12, 15 other people that really the shooter was attempting to take out?
Now that I don't know. I know the bus had upwards of 25 people on board. As to who or how many the suspect was targeting, that has yet to be revealed.
David, the people of Charlottesville have had a rough, 2 or 3 years. How is the community doing? Because the attack at the parade 2 years ago has still got to be fresh for a lot of people, and now this. How is the community of Charlottesville doing?
Well, full disclosure, I have not been there yet. I don't live there, but there was a silent vigil on the lawn Monday evening, and I think that was obviously healthy. I don't think words matter. I think it was just community and connecting mattered. And there is a makeshift memorial outside of Scott Stadium where people are leaving notes and flowers. And classes were back in session today. President Jim Ryan opened up his office home to any students who wanted to come in and just be, for lack of better description. So I think the community is doing as well as anyone could hope for.
David, my last question for you, and we do appreciate you coming on because I know it's been an incredibly long week and it's not over, far from over. The outpouring of support, we see this, again, I mentioned rivalries and some of them more intense than others, but what you have seen from others rallying around Virginia, what is that said? And also, have you almost been blown away by it?
Actually, I'm not surprised because we've seen it so many other times. We've seen it here in the Commonwealth in 2007 when the mass shootings occurred at Virginia Tech. The entire country rallied around Hokie Nation and Blacksburg and the New River Valley. It gives you newfound faith in the human condition. And these things happen, and we have so many questions, and we don't understand, and we never will. But then we see the outpouring, and it gives us hope. And at this moment, that's about all we can cling to.
Mm-hmm. You've done an incredible job. I know others have been involved in the coverage as well, David. We appreciate you. We had you on back when it was something as unimportant as maybe what the ACC's future was, or maybe about Coastal Carolina, and that was the opponent for Virginia this week, or just college football in general, college sports in general. This obviously much deeper than that. Thank you for your time, and good luck moving forward with covering it.
My pleasure, gentlemen. Thank you.
You too. David Teel with us on 365 Sports. And I was almost, I got to tell you, when I